All right. So I encountered a new conservative YouTuber who goes by Baggage Claim. And they put out a video about 4 months ago titled, Why J.K. Rowling Shouldn't Back Down. So let's find out. Let's find out. Why should J.K. Rowling, a billionaire, not back down? Why should she do anything?
Isn't it amazing that just with a couple tweets, J.K. Rowling, the previously feminist heroine of the left, set the whole internet ablaze? Woke folk everywhere turned against her, taking to social media to unleash their fervent rage by ripping up or burning the Harry Potter books and cursing their once beloved author, calling for mass boycotts of anything and everything to do with the magical world. In all this anger, there was a common thread of bewilderment. Why? Many asked, why would J.K. Rowling be willing to undo her pristine legacy to spout bigoted ideas? Luckily, it's a question that
Yeah, it's really true that people that J.K. Rowling targeted and said should be denied basic civil rights, it's true that they've been very unfair to this billionaire. It's so unfair for them to disagree with their civil rights being taken away and being mad at the person who's largely responsible for lobbying toward that end in the UK. Yeah, it was really unfair of people to get mad at those brave white supremacists who were protesting Martin Luther King Jr. They were really unfair to the white supremacists. Yeah, Fedorgi, it's called medicine. And I know you might have this problem with trans people, but yes, actually, taking away their ability to use modern medicine would be an infringement on their civil rights. On par with saying something like, how dare you mutilate that 60-year-old man with an open heart transplant? How dare you? That's mutilating the human body, sir. That is sacred. You know blacks are disproportionately homophobic, right? Okay, well, we know exactly where you come from. We know exactly where you're coming from, bud. You come in here, you're like, well, I don't want to murder trans people on sight. Now you're moving on to you're basically on the doorstep of 1350ing me right now, aren't you? You're on the verge of saying a 1350, aren't you? People are being so unfair to me because of my deeply held religious beliefs. Anyway, do you want to know that black people are 13% of the population and commit 50% of the violent crime? Like that's what you're doing right now. You're like trying to Trojan horse your way into this conversation. My God. Did you know that African Americans are disproportionately homophobic? Oh, wow. Insane. Thanks for letting us know, guy who came in and said, well, I hate trans people, but I wouldn't kill you. Thanks. It means a whole lot, your input on who is and is not disproportionately homophobic. It means a whole lot. You're really nailing this one. Really claiming the moral high ground on this. You brought up Martin Luther King Jr. I did. Because I was demonstrating that the point you were making about J.K. Rowling was deeply flawed. Because in this circumstance, you would be someone who'd be very concerned about Martin Luther King Jr.'s unfair malignment of and treatment of white supremacists. That was the reference I was making. If you were to be, drawing a parallel between the civil rights movement of the 1960s and today, which I think is pretty apparent and obvious to anyone with a half-functioning brain. If Martin Luther King Jr. was alive today, it's statistically true he would be opposed to transsexual activists. If Martin Luther King Jr. was alive today, it's statistically true that he would beat your ass. Anyway, I'm done with that one. And moving on.
That Megan Phelps-Roper was able to pose to J.K. Rowling herself when she interviewed the author for her podcast, The Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling. And her answer will completely change the way you look at the Harry Potter author. But I'll come back to that later. After Rowling published what are now commonly referred to as the tweets, many of the Harry Potter stars were quick to turn on her, starting with Emma Watson, who tweeted, "Trans people are who they say they are." And
I did have fun with that. I did indeed. Yes.
deserve to live their lives without being constantly questioned or told that they aren't who they say they are. I want my trans followers to know that I and so many other people around the world see you, respect you, and love you for who you are. Bonnie Wright was next, tweeting, "If Harry Potter was a source of love and belonging for you, that love is infinite and there to take without judgment or question. Trans women are women. I see you and love you." Rupert Grint followed suit, saying, "I firmly stand with the trans community."
Rupert Grint, as we all know, star of the incredible cult classic Thunderpants,
and echo the sentiments.
I'm sorry, I can't just tell you guys Rupert Grint is the star of Thunderpants without showing you guys the trailer for this amazing movie. I know it's completely unrelated to anything that's going to happen in this video, but this is the real trailer for Thunderpants. It's real. This is a real movie. I've seen it, and it's actually surprisingly heartwarming. Anyway, here we go.
We appear to have lost communication with the rocket.
Expansion chambers primed for influx.
What's the chances of this happening?
We're plumb out of ideas. We're in trouble. We need a miracle.
All right, then. The United States Space Center are on a constant search throughout the world to seek out children with gifts. That's why they came and found me. And that's why they found you, too.
From the director of the
Smash. Thank you, Mr. President.
Comes an adventure that will blow you away.
Hot dog!
Starring Rupert Grint from Harry Potter.
You're going to be a spaceman.
And introducing Bruce Cook as Patrick Smash.
We are Patrick and Owen, the team.
Get ready to reach for the stars as two best friends take one giant leap.
We have a
Yeah!
Thunderpants.
Genius.
You know what's amazing about this video, about this trailer? Do you know what's actually amazing about this trailer? It didn't actually display any of the core concepts of Thunderpants. I can't believe that the trailer we just watched didn't actually tell you the core conceit of Thunderpants, which is that small child that they shot into space at the end at the end of the trailer has the ability to fart so long and with such force that he can propel flying objects. The entire premise of the movie is that his ass effectively acts as some sort of primitive jet engine. In the context of the film, the spaceship that is being launched is being powered by his farts. They don't show that in the trailer. That's the main concept of the movie. How does he not shit himself with the power of modern technology, I guess? I guess this, you know what, maybe we'll take a risk here. Here's a 28-second, clip cut from the movie.
That was the worst day of my life. It was the best day of my life. It was the worst day of my life. Best day of my life. Worst day of my life. Best day of my life. It was the worst day of my life. Ever.
That still didn't explain anything. The lack of comprehensibility of everything I've just shown you. I feel like I've dug myself too deep. Anyway, thanks Rupert Grit for being a trans ally. Moving on.
Expressed by many of my peers. Trans women are women. Trans men are men. We should be entitled to live and love without judgment. Eddie Redmayne, too, popped his head into the controversy and had this to say. As someone who has worked with both J.K. Rowling and members of the trans community, I wanted to make it absolutely clear where I stand. I disagree with Joe's comments. Trans women are women. Trans men are men. And non-binary identities are valid. And finally, Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter himself, had this to say. Transgender women are women. Any statement to the contrary erases the identity and dignity of transgender people and goes against all advice given by professional healthcare associations who have far more expertise on the subject matter than either Joe or I. After reading all of these responses, you could fairly assume that Rowling's tweets must have been heinous, bigoted, and deeply derogatory to an already marginalized group. Well, why don't we read the tweets that started it all?
I tweeted, "Dress however you please. Call yourself whatever you like. Sleep with any consenting adult who'll have you. Live your best life in peace and security. But force women out of their jobs for stating that sex is real. Hashtag I stand with Maya. Hashtag this is not a drill." Creating a more equal post-COVID-19 world for people who menstruate. People who menstruate. I'm sure there used to be a word for those people. Someone help me out. Wumban, wimpened, womad. If sex isn't real, there's no same-sex attraction. If sex isn't real...
Are we doing donos for latex today? No, today, but I will change into a cosplay outfit. I just realized I didn't have my latex shining stuff, so I wanted to make sure that if I did go through the trouble of putting on latex, it would at least be shiny for you guys.
The lived reality of women globally is erased.
Yeah, no, by the way, that when she was talking about this here, this is literally the birthing person discourse all over again, you know?
Attraction. If sex isn't real, the lived reality of women globally is erased. I know and love trans people, but erasing the concept of sex removes the ability of many to meaningfully discuss their lives. It isn't hate to speak the truth.
I respect every trans person's right to live any way that feels authentic and comfortable.
By the way, this is just like the British way of saying love the sinner, hate the sin. I support everyone's ability to live in a way that is authentic and comfortable to them, but also I want to remove your civil rights because they're not the same as mine.
Comfortable to them.
Yeah, it's a lie. It's the same way people who say that they love sinners but hate the sin are also lying. It's just a pretext to hate people who they object to, essentially.
March with you if you were discriminated against on the basis of being trans. At the same time, my life has been shaped by being female. I do not believe it's hateful to say so. Yeah, doesn't quite live up to the devilish reputation that J.K. Rowling's haters want us to believe, right? In fact, the tweets seem...
I mean, the thing is, she keeps saying it, and she keeps aligning herself with, like, far-right organizations that are so far-right that, like, neo-Nazis show up to participate in their rallies openly. She gives money to these causes, and she fuels, you know, for all intents and purposes, she's the beating heart that fuels the transphobic movement in the UK. She's the one that injected this anti-trans panic into the UK's discourse. It's why you get the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom making jokes about a dead trans girl's expense on a national stage. You know, that doesn't just come out of nowhere. That comes from her, specifically. It comes from her and her resources giving her the ability to impact the conversation far outsized to her, like, actual presence would indicate, you know?
Quite reasonable. It's accepting of trans people, but also holds firm on the concept of biological sex. And a majority of people agree with this idea. The problem is that the silent majority lives up to its name and chooses to stay silent.
Then how can you make an appeal to this silent majority? Citation needed. Again, this is what you find in a lot of conservative essayists, right? Like, it's all vibes. Oh, well, the silent majority, you know, they agree with us. And, you know, you'll have to take my word for it because I have no data to back up my point. Just trust me, bro. Most people agree with us. I can feel it in my bones, you know?
While the squeaky minority that is obsessed with identity is quick to write off anyone that deviates from their definition of acceptable ideas. This side is all for love and acceptance as long as their beliefs are fully embraced. But if
it's the concept of the paradox of tolerance. That's conservatives have been struggling with that for like 100 years now. They can't seem to really understand that interaction. Yeah. Why can't you tolerate me just hating black people? It's not like that will seep into any of the decisions I make on a day-to-day basis. Like, no, of course it's going to do that. That's why we tend to discourage bigoted behavior, because it's awful and it seeps into everything else. Like, I'm sorry, you're not going to want, for example, you're not going to want to send your kid to daycare if they're mixed race or, like, black, if, like, the person running the daycare is like the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. You're not going to want to do that. Even if they're like, oh, well, you know, it's just my ideas. I would never do anything bad. Well, you know, maybe we don't want to take you at your word for that.
If there is even a whiff of dissension or even a request to discuss things further, they crack down hard, calling for all forms of violence against their newly declared traitors in the name of protecting marginalized groups.
Citation needed.
And the level of threats of violence that J.K.
I love this. The level of threats of violence that J.K. Rowling has faced, and like the tweets that are being shown are like, shut the fuck up. I'm sorry, telling someone to shut the fuck up is not threat. It's not threats. It's not violence. You are allowed to tell someone to shut the fuck up. You're allowed to say that.
J.K. Rowling has faced in the last 3 years is not for the faint-hearted. No wonder the silent majority stays silent. But the real cause for shame are the actors that chose to throw Rowling under the bus and use her as a stepping stool so they could deny biology and facts in order to...
Citation needed. I love, by the way, when transphobes go this route. They're like, yeah, people who support trans people are going in the face of science and facts. As if, like, the vast majority of scientific consensus and facts are not on the side of, like, trans healthcare. You know, like, transgender affirming healthcare. Literally every reputable, like, scientific magazine, every reputable doctor, every reputable, like, piece of research into this finds in favor of gender affirming care for trans people. Frankly, most of it finds in favor of gender affirming care for cisgender people as well.
To virtue signal, something J.K. Rowling could have easily done. She too could have given in and proudly declared that trans women are women. But why is she refusing to do this? Well, she said it herself. That would not be the truth.
Why choose this music for your video? Like literally trying to, like, sanctify J.K. Rowling, like, deify her. It's weird.
Definitions matter. Truth matters. And if we cannot protect the definition of a woman, we cannot protect women. We cannot protect mothers, young girls. We cannot provide single-sex spaces like bathrooms, locker rooms, prisons, and...
Hot take, maybe maybe bathrooms shouldn't be single-sex spaces. Maybe we should just have unisex bathrooms. I mean, if the premise of why you think you need sex-segregated bathrooms is that you think that men would just rape women, then surely you'd want single-sex bathroom, or, not single-sex, like, unisex bathrooms, because that would ensure more people would be going into one bathroom. Which means more people could intervene in the case of a sexual assault. If this were to even happen, which usually it doesn't just happen in a public bathroom. Usually that's not where, like, sexual assaults happen. Yeah, gender-neutral bathrooms, like ones in airplanes, airports, public amenities like parks, porta potties. Like, I'm sorry, every American home has a unisex bathroom in it, and you're expecting people to be afraid of these public unisex. No, you don't need this. This is strange, weird behavior if that's what you're predicating your entire bigoted position on, right? It's weird and off.
Crisis centers to women at their most vulnerable.
You know, there is power to words with history.
I mean, yeah, I didn't know who Baggage Claim was, but they have almost 300,000 subscribers, and this video has 300k views. So I mean, they're fairly, like, well known here.
Both good and ill. And to me, the word woman has its own power. And I do not believe we can meaningfully analyze the harms done to women and girls without using language that has concrete meaning.
This is what J.K. Rowling is arguing for.
Yeah, but trans people aren't arguing for no language with concrete meaning. Just that the meaning of words change over time as, like, new utility arrives in the form of, like, current events, in the form of culture, in the form of science, etc. Like, language changes. It's not a static thing. But also, on top of that, trans people are being more specific with their language than transphobic bigots.
She's arguing to maintain the social taboo of keeping men out of these spaces, especially psychotic, violent men who use blurred definitions.
Trans women guilty of raping 2 women remanded in female prison in Scotland. We've covered this case, but again, note that, like, this case is about literally a person who transitioned after the crimes. Like, this wasn't the case of, like, someone transitioning and then doing crimes. This was crimes and then transitioning. And I don't know if, like, TERFs know this or not, but there are women rapists in women's prisons. Like, we still send women who rape to women's prisons, even if they raped another woman. This isn't really the gotcha, or, like, even the framing here falls apart when you just look at the screenshot and read what's on screen. And no one who's been caught for a crime and is now going to jail is like, hell yeah, I'm secretly a cis man, but I said I'm transitioning, and now I'm being forced to take HRT. But now I will have my secret plan fulfilled of going to a women's prison where I will be able to rape all of the other women. And one would think that if this was a huge problem, it would have emerged by now in all of the cases where prison systems have allowed trans women to be in women's prison, and that hasn't happened. Yeah, the UK also has weird, like, sexual assault, rape laws. I think they changed it in the UK relatively recently so that rape is expanded beyond just uh, penile penetration, but I'm not up on my UK sexual assault law.
As cover to sneak into such spaces. And this is why we need J.K. Rowling, because she's willing to stand up.
You know, again, if this is such a prevalent problem, then the citation should be out there, baggage claim. Cite your sources in the video. Otherwise, you're just like, well, yeah, J.K. Rowling saying this is a real problem, and I think it's a real problem as well, but I'm not going to cite any data. I'm not going to cite any data. I'm just going off vibes. Makes me feel icky, so that's what I base my entire opinion on. Yep.
Up for women, to stand up for the truth where others dare not. When Rowling was asked about her fans who claimed that she has ruined her legacy during her interview for the Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling, here's what she had to say.
I think you could not have misunderstood me more profoundly. I do not walk around my house thinking about my legacy. You know, what a pompous way to live your life, walking around thinking, what will my legacy be? Whatever, I'll be dead. I care about now. I care about the living.
And this response is...
And that's why she's destroyed her entire career to try and strip trans people of their basic civil liberties.
what distinguishes Rowling from the rest of the people rushing to virtue signal on this issue. Willing to lie that sex is not real, and willing to play into the delusion that anyone can just become a woman thanks to some hormones and a good plastic surgeon. Rowling's detractors have tried so hard to wrench her away from her work, separate her name from her creation, claiming that she does not understand the values that the Harry Potter books stand for. But they're wrong. Harry Potter is such an interesting hero. Despite being the main character of one of the most popular book and movie franchises of all time, Harry is surprisingly overlooked. People often talk about Hermione or Snape or even Dumbledore, but rarely about Harry himself.
Yeah, because Harry Potter kind of sucks. Harry Potter kind of sucks. Like, his main power in the series is being wealthy. Like, that's literally his main thing is being wealthy. And he's weirdly mean to his friends. He's also pro-slavery. He also joins, like, the horribly inept, traitorous police force at the end. Like, not only that, he basically just lucks into killing the villain. He doesn't do anything clever. He doesn't, like, outfight or, like, out-clever the villain. He just dies. like, come on. I'm sorry, I don't know how you really get behind Harry Potter after he shows himself to just not give a single fuck about the fact that there's an entire race of enslaved people making the wizard society function. Anyway, yeah. That's the reason why people talk about Snape or Hermione or, like, you know, Rupert Grint. These people are more interesting. They're more interesting characters than Harry Potter.
He's a magical orphan who defeats a powerful enemy, but he isn't particularly smart. Hermione has all the brains and Dumbledore has all the power. But what makes Harry the hero is his willingness to speak the truth. In the 5th Harry Potter book, The Order of the Phoenix,
he doesn't speak the truth. He's literally complicit with slavery. What are you talking about? Again, most of the points in Harry's favor get immediately undone by the fact that he's pro-slavery. By the fact that he heard basically all of the Southern gentlemen's, reflexive defense of slavery as a system, and went, ah, yes, that sounds right, and he nodded and then went along with it.
Harry clashes with the new teacher at Hogwarts, Professor Umbridge, over what constitutes as a lie. A clash that leads Harry to undergo a very cruel punishment. Reading this book as an adult, I kept wondering why Harry always insisted on speaking up, despite being warned many times, despite the act of telling the truth, making his already difficult life worse. Why was it important to him to stand up to Umbridge? But J.K. Rowling understands, and we all need to understand too. When lies are forced onto a society.
Hey, remember when Harry Potter's best friend, Ron Weasley, broke his wand and couldn't afford a replacement wand because he and his family are poor? Remember that? And remember how Harry's main superpower is that he's really wealthy? And then just watches his friends struggle with a broken wand for an entire year? Anyway.
Society under the penalty of ostracization, when scientists are fired for speaking the facts of biology, when teachers and professors are ousted.
Biology professor says he was fired for teaching students sex is determined by XY chromosomes. I wonder if that's true. Let's find out. Let's just Google this. Biology professor says he was fired for teaching students. Let's see. This would be by Courtney B, so it's not the New York Post's version. Let's see. Is determined by X/Y chromosomes. Was it this one? Yeah, we found it, baby. We found it on The Source. All right. Let's just go through The Source. Okay. A biology professor at a community college in San Antonio says he was fired for teaching students that sex is determined by X and Y chromosomes. He said he was told his lessons were offensive and unacceptable to homosexuals and transgenders. You know the tell here that makes me just doubt the veracity of this story? The official administration told him that his lessons were offensive to homosexuals and transgenders. People don't generally refer to transgender people as transgenders unless they are conservative and transphobic. Or, just kind of ignorant and trying the best they can. Well, those transgenders, they're not so bad. That's one of the other exceptions. But generally speaking, if you know a trans person, you know not to call trans people transgenders. Because, again, that's like calling black people the blacks, It takes on a weird characteristic when you do it that way. Dr. Johnson Varkey claims he was terminated at St. Philip's College for religious preaching after his lecture about the human reproductive system on November 28th, 2022. So he wasn't fired for teaching students sex is determined by X/Y chromosomes. He was fired for religious preaching, which is not teaching how chromosomes work. I just want to point out these are not the same thing, actually. These are two different categories. Varkey is being represented in a possible wrongful termination lawsuit by conservative law firm, the First Liberty Institute. Yeah. The college fired him for teaching basic and widely accepted concepts of biology. We're asking the community, or the college, to immediately reinstate Dr. Varkey to his position and clear his record of any wrongdoing, the law firm said in a statement. Varkey's lecture led to 4 students walking out of the lecture hall. The 4 students reportedly complained about the professor's religious preaching, discriminatory comments about homosexuals and transgender individuals, anti-abortion rhetoric, and misogynistic banter. It's really interesting that they would complain about anti-abortion rhetoric if all he was doing was teaching about how sex is determined by X and Y chromosomes. If you were just teaching sex is determined by X and Y chromosomes, why would the complaint include anti-abortion rhetoric? In 2 decades of teaching these basic, unremarkable concepts, no other students complained. Varkey has taught human anatomy and physiology to more than 1,500 students since 2003, according to the First Liberty Institute. I wonder what the college had to say. Interestingly, we don't hear their side. Let's take a good Google of Dr. Johnson Varkey, all right? Just see what's happening. Oh, what's that? Interesting. So he got his job back, actually. Johnson Varkey will return to the classroom this fall, his self-described Christian conservative law firm said Tuesday. Yeah, the Christian conservative law firm. Interesting combination of words there. Let's see. He was fired last summer. Again, the agreeing with this framing seems odd to me, but okay. Okay. Alamo College's district canned him for teaching standard principles about human biology and reproduction. Man, I'd love a little bit more skepticism towards this story, but okay. In Varkey's termination letter, Alamo Colleges accused the professor of making anti-LGBTQ+ comments, participating in misogynistic banter, and engaging in other inappropriate classroom behavior. So this wasn't just the complaint. You know, in this article from last year, it said that the complaint against him by the 4 students alleged the anti-abortion rhetoric, etc. But now this is his termination letter, so that's different as well. This story's weird. Okay. In an emailed statement, an Alamo College's spokesperson confirmed it had reinstated Varkey, but offered no additional comment. Quote, okay, this is from Liberty Institute. In a letter sent to Alamo Colleges shortly after his dismissal, Varkey's attorneys described him as a devout Christian who believes that one should not attempt to erase or alter his or her sex, and that absent of a compelling reason, one should not sterilize oneself. However, the lawyers said Varkey never shared those views during lectures. So what this sounds like is essentially a settlement. What this sounds like is essentially the college going, we don't actually want to litigate this because it could go on for a long time and make us look really bad, and also just like they probably don't have like hard evidence, like video of him in the classroom saying comments, stuff like that. So it kind of becomes like a he said, she said situation. I'm guessing that instead of litigating this, they wanted to settle, and the easiest way to settle would be to just give him his job back. That's me reading between the lines here, of course. But given that this hadn't actually gone to trial, that's kind of what I'm getting out of this. You mean the transphobe is misogynistic? Yeah. So, yeah, honestly, we don't actually see any evidence for or against this case other than headlines from conservative news outlets running with the law firm's narrative. So, interestingly enough, all we have in this case is actually just vibes.
Are fired for speaking the facts of biology when teachers and professors are ousted from positions for arguing for the protection of women, when people are afraid to speak their minds. We are on a very bad path as a society. Harry needed to speak up so that the people around him too could find the courage to do the same and stand up against tyranny. The price for telling the truth is often steep, but the price of accepting a lie is worse. And that's
Are they going to show the soup? Is the soup going to make an appearance?
why J.K. Rowling is refusing to back down.
Is she about to get souped? Damn it! I was really excited to see her get souped. I thought they were going to try and use the clip of her getting souped to be like, see, the transgenders are silencing their opposition. I do want to point out, though, that this lady who's been featured here many, many times throughout this video is Kelly Jean King. I think Kelly Jean... Wait, Jean... Oh god, what is her name? Is it... I don't think it's King. Is it just Kelly Jean? Whatever. Yeah, she's better known as Posey Parker. She's an actual Nazi. Like, she pals around with actual neo-Nazis. Her profile picture on Twitter for a long time was a Barbie in a Nazi outfit. She's crazy, and it's telling that one of the women highlighted in Baggage Claim's video is, like, known for palling around with neo-Nazis. That's, like, her entire thing. Kelly J. Keane? Yes, there we go. Thank you, Fought Knight. Yeah, anyway, she tried to go to New Zealand, and she got souped. Someone threw soup on her. It was great.
And that's why J.K. Rowling is refusing to back down.
You have said that you respect trans people, but you also say that there's a real difference between biological women and trans women, and a meaningful distinction between the two in their experiences. And I think some of your critics point to that and say, you're essentially making trans women second-class women. You know, like, you're almost women. You are essentially saying, I'll treat you as a woman. You are an honorary woman. But this distinction that you are emphasizing, the biological distinction that you see as being so important, it can feel hurtful to them. Can you understand the pain that that could cause?
Yes, is the short answer. Yes, I can understand that hurt. The thing is, women are the only group, to my knowledge, that are being asked to embrace members of their oppressor class unquestioningly, with no caveat. Now, on an individual basis...
Ah, yes. Trans women. The true oppressors of cis women. Indeed, truly. Oh my god. This is where we're at. All of those trans women just boot on the neck of the cis women. That is how it be, apparently.
And I think many people new to this argument would see it on that level, because many people have...
Yeah, you know, I think African Americans and indigenous people might have something to say about that, J.K. Rowling, but okay.
My generation particularly think that we're talking about old school transsexuals, people who've been through full sex reassignment because of profound gender dysphoria. And I feel 100% compassion for such people, and I would absolutely respect their pronouns, always have, always will, and would...
But also, if they go into the wrong bathroom, they should be thrown in jail forever.
Want, as I say, them to have comfortable, easy lives. This movement, though, is pressing for something different, very different. This movement has argued, continues to argue, that a man may have had no surgery whatsoever, but if he feels himself to be a woman, the door of every woman's bathroom, changing room, rape center should be open to him.
She does realize that there are stalls and changing rooms within, like, these spaces that she's talking about. It's not just like complete, like an open floor plan bathroom. It's not like you walk into the women's changing room and there are just naked women everywhere. It's not how that works.
I say no. I'm afraid I say no. And we are in a cultural moment where that individual...
No, it's not OBS. It's in the video. It's not OBS. It's in the video. It's not OBS. It's in the video. The audio is out of sync in her video. It's a deliberate thing.
Individuals hurt.
Because it's a deliberate thing because the audio is from the Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling, which is a podcast. There is no video that goes along with this. It's just being put over random clips of J.K. Rowling talking.
Is being prioritized over the hurt of women whose rights and boundaries are under sustained assault. And I think it's interesting to ask why the pain of one group is being prioritized over the pain of other groups.
And that's why we need her. That's why we need to follow her example and never be afraid to speak the truth.
Oh, that was the end. It just ends there. Okay. Yeah, no, you just hate trans people based off of vibes. Can we just, like, acknowledge that for so many conservatives, they don't actually have an argument against why, for why they think trans people should be alienated? They just have, well, I feel like they do a lot of crimes. I feel like they could do crimes, hypothetically. I feel like, you know, maybe if I squint a little bit, they might be a danger. And it's just like, well, I'm sorry, you don't get to legislate around that with no actual evidence. You actually have to make an argument that's rooted in actual material circumstances, not just hypothetically someone could maybe someday go on HRT for several years and get bottom surgery, playing apparently some sort of long con game to do better at sports and do sexual assaults in a bathroom. Like this, like it, when you actually lay it out as like a plan that someone might do, it's insane. No one would do that. Trans people also would not do that. Like, this is the logic of everyone needs to be put into a cage so that I can feel safe. You know, it's just an argument in favor of fearing every other human being on Earth.